Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz, and welcome to our meeting of our Interagency Council to end the achievement gap. And we hereby call this meeting to order, and greetings to all of our council members. We have a very robust agenda ahead of us today. So I'm not going to spend too much time on opening remarks. And I do want everyone to know how much we appreciate your service through this council as we work every day to keep our residents safe and make sure that we are operating our government at the very highest level for our constituents. As I said before, this council is particularly important as our school system and our students continue to adjust to different ways of teaching and learning. We know now more than we ever did before how responding to change is more of a challenge, and it's more of a challenge for some than others. It's our goal as a council to work very collaboratively in offering equal access to resources and services and to closing the performance gap. So thank you all for being here today, ready to actively participate, and thank you for the work that you do every day in support of this council and our students and our families. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kari Sullivan from the State Department of Education, and she will do an attendance and roll call, please.
Okay, so first I'd like to welcome a new person to our meeting. Grace Carlos is here. She's an intern at the Office of Lieutenant Governor from Three Rivers Community College. Welcome, Grace, and we appreciate all of your help on this work today, getting us ready for this meeting. So with that, I'm going to start with the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities.
Sean Bradbury here, Senior Director of Government Relations and External Affairs for CSU, and welcome, Grace, as one of our students. We're excited that you're interning and getting some good experience with you setting up.
Department of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon, everybody. Doug Casey, Executive Director for the State's Commission for Educational Technology.
Department of Children and Families.
Good afternoon. This is Jody Lilly, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Children and Families.
Awesome, thank you. If folks could mute their phones, there's some feedback here. Let's see if I can help with that. Matt, can you mute the phones? Thank you. Okay, so Department of Economic and Community Development.
Deputy Commissioner Gwendolyn Thames is here.
Thank you. Department of Housing.
Hi, good afternoon. Deputy Commissioner Hanks is here.
Department of Public Health.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mario Garcia. I'm the manager of Public Health Systems Improvement, sitting in for the commission.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Department of Social Services.
Hello, this is Peter Hadler, Director of Program Oversight and Grant Administration at DSS.
Good afternoon. This is Astrid Farron-Cole, Chief of Staff at DSS.
Yeah. Judicial Branch. And then the Office of Early Childhood.
Hi, this is Beth. Office of Early Childhood. Myself, being on another call, glad to be here.
Office of Policy and Management. Okay. Office of Policy and Management. Right. And then the State Department of Education.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Miguel, Cardona, Commissioner of Education.
Good afternoon, Charlene Russell-Tucker, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, John Fresnelli, Division Director at the State Department of Education.
And I'm Kari Sullivan, Education Consultant for Attendance and Engagement at the State Department of Education. Did we forget anyone? Anyone who hasn't introduced themselves yet?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Patricia Nunez. I'm a program manager for the Connecticut Judicial Branch, designee for Chief Court Administrator, Judge Patrick Carroll. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Hegedus. I just arrived a little late. I apologize. I'm the Dean of Education at Southern Connecticut State University.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Can you repeat that?
Stephen Hegedus.
Okay.
I'm the Dean of the College of Education at Southern Connecticut State University.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, I think that's the roll call, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Kari. We're now going to take a moment to review today's agenda. And I'm going to start by leading us in a brief review of follow-up since our last meeting. Afterwards, I'll invite you to comment on anything you'd like to add for later discussion and consideration with respect to the policy recommendations that we covered in October. So we will then go to a special presentation from the LEGO Group's CEO or Executive Vice President of America's Market Group. Skip Kodak is going to be talking about some of his early childhood development programs. And we so appreciate him joining us today. He has been someone who's been a stalwart supporter of strengthening early childhood development programs and quality care, recognizing the very unique challenges faced by children of color. And we're excited to have him also talk about LEGO's contribution in supporting culturally responsive curriculum that fosters skills development, creativity, and confidence. So thank you for joining us today, Skip. Consistent with LEGO's presentation, we will then review 3 of the subjects and results statement from the Achievement Gap Task Force Master Plan. And those 3 areas are early care and education, and that discussion is going to be led by Commissioner Beth. Inside the schoolhouse, use of curriculum and closing the achievement gap in low-performing schools. That discussion is going to be led by Commissioner Miguel Cardona. And finally, inside the schoolhouse, creativity and innovation and the achievement gap, which will also be led by Commissioner Cardona. For these discussions, we're going to follow the same format that we did in our October meeting, where we address each policy recommendation. We ask for input from other council members and take real-time notes as we share information and considerations. And after we review the policy recommendations, we will discuss next steps, including our 2021 meeting schedule. So hopefully there's no questions about the agenda. So we're going to jump right in to the follow-ups from the last meeting. So Kari's going to show us some slides. And here's our follow-up from our last meeting. First, I want to note we received additional written commentary from the Department of Public Health, Office of Early Childhood, and the Department of Children and Families in response to the policy recommendations we discussed. We also received follow-up information from the Department of Social Services, specifically on their teen pregnancy prevention program, which provides at-risk middle and high school students with structured, supportive, and safe environments, and helps them acquire the tools they need to help them avoid early parenting. We also got information from the Department of Revenue Services regarding the policy recommendation to ensure income tax-based assistance for workers, including the state's existing refundable state-earned income tax credit to supplement low-wage earning parents. We understand from DRS that in addition to the earned income tax credit, which mirrors the federal EIT, Connecticut also offers the following things. First, a property tax credit to Connecticut residents who made qualifying property tax payments on eligible property, and they are able to claim a credit against their Connecticut income tax liability. Income tax exemptions for teachers' pensions. Beginning in the taxable year 2019, the taxpayer is allowed a subtraction of modification of 25% of the income they receive from the teacher's retirement system when they calculate their Connecticut adjusted gross income. And finally, subtraction modification for pension and annuity income for the taxable year beginning January 1st, 2019. An individual with a federal filing status of single, married, filing separately, or head of household with a federal AGI for the taxable year of less than $75,000, or married filing jointly with a federal AGI of less than $100,000 will be able to subtract 14% of any pension or annuity income received from the taxable year when calculating Connecticut AGI. It's also noteworthy that DRS provides free taxpayer assistance via numerous channels and will be offering video conferencing appointments for taxpayers to meet with trained DRS professionals remotely. The agency works in conjunction with community and civic organizations to ensure that assistance is delivered to all taxpayers at the local level. Such organizations include local senior centers, VITA, or IRS-sponsored volunteer income tax assistance programs, Committee on Aging organizations, Veterans Affairs offices for retired military, ARP, legal aids, state representatives' offices, Better Business Bureau, local library, and local community centers. I understand there's also been some follow-up discussions regarding the digital divide in response to the Department of Housing Deputy Commissioner Hanks raising the issue at the last meeting. First, we do want to acknowledge the governor's announcement from just last week that 141,000 laptops were delivered to students, grades K through 12, making us the first state in the country to provide access to learning devices to all pre-K to 12th grade students in need. Closing this digital divide is a top priority for us, and I welcome continuing discussions on how we can further address this matter through the council. So we're going to ask the Deputy Commissioner, Shante Hanks, if she'd like to share a little bit about your follow-up discussions, and perhaps Doug Casey might want to offer any additional commentary. Madam Deputy?
Sure. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So yes, we had a follow-up meeting, Doug Casey, myself, members of the DOH team, including Commissioner Sarah Musquera-Bruno, to discuss family engagement. How can DOH be of assistance to the team to help, get this information out to families, into the communities? And we spent some time and explored a number of ideas that I think we're going to be able to put into action rather quickly, and that included our providers, getting them out to them, getting them out to our property managers. We even talked about faith-based organizations, reaching out to them just to get it on the ground, even going back old school and actually printing it using postcards, because the issue is obviously folks not having access to the internet. So the typical, social media push, which is working, we still need more, obviously, for folks that don't have access to social media. So we have explored a number of ideas, and we're in conversation now about getting it out to, like I said, our providers, including community action agencies. And then we also have a meeting scheduled, an upcoming meeting with the Department of Education so that we can learn what they've done thus far, so that we can be of some assistance. So I'm really excited about our being able to add to the discussion and provide some additional resources to get the word out. Doug, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Yeah, I think the news is great, as you noted, Lieutenant Governor, that the device divide has essentially been closed in Connecticut, and now we're chipping away at that connectivity divide. I think it's important to note that the governor has made provision for a connection for every student in the state who needs it. And through some of those outreach efforts that are going on through the Office of the Governor, through TV, radio, social media, as you mentioned, good old-fashioned postcards work well. The supply side is there. Now we're trying to drive the demand side of raising awareness among parents that if they don't have internet at home for their students, that it is free this year and they should pursue that with their schools. And we provided plenty of orientation and backup information to the schools. We've been working with them for months on this initiative. They know how to support those parent requests and connecting them to internet providers across the state. So we continue to push on this in friendly nudges in every venue that we can. And we'll keep chipping away at it, but we're really enlisting community partners and excited to work with all the different agencies who have connections with their communities to make this happen.
Great.
One thing I forgot to note, Lieutenant Governor, is that I thought that, the parents that have applied for energy assistance, I thought that those folks there may be a direct connection to folks that are applying for those programs through the community action agencies, may need, internet connectivity. So we're going to also try that route as well.
Great. Wonderful. Anybody else? All right. So at this time, I would ask that everyone please give their attention. Sorry, and would anyone else like to chime in? Okay. At this time, we're going to ask everyone to please give their attention to Mr. Skip Kodak, Executive Vice President of the Americas Market Group for LEGO. Mr. Kodak joined the LEGO Group in 2002 and in 2016 was appointed to his current role, which is overseeing the sales and marketing in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, and Brazil. That is a lot of Legos. And prior to joining LEGO, he had held various sales and marketing roles at the Heinz Company, Ocean Spray, and Procter & Gamble. Mr. Kodak has a personal passion and commitment for advancing the needs of underserved children and at-risk families. And I also understand that he has a Bachelor of Arts in Government, which has come in handy during our administration. Skip, thank you so much. And we really appreciate his passion and expertise. And we're delighted to have him as a private sector partner. LEGO's been an active member of our corporate leadership circle that supports our Council on Women and Girls, particularly advocating for affordable and developmental child care, and that child care be more available and accessible. The company has also put its money where its mouth is when it comes to the very issues that we are discussing on the council. In June, the LEGO Group donated $4 million to support organizations that teach children and families racial tolerance and address the opportunity gap that faces children of color in our educational system. So we're so grateful for LEGO's partnership and corporate leadership, and we are thrilled for the insight that Skip is going to share with us today. So Skip, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor, and hello, everybody. It's not a usual day when I get to be with this many people. on behalf of the LEGO group. And so I brought a friend of mine, Jen Dubison, is also on the line. In case you're wondering what Jen does, she makes sure that I'm well prepared for events like this and actually is integrally involved in everything that we do as a company and as an organization, both with the state of Connecticut and throughout the geography I'm responsible for. So Jen, glad you're here. And assuming all of my service from Comcast pulls through, this should be a few minutes of me just having the opportunity to share with you some perspectives. So again, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for inviting me to speak today. And thank you to all of you and your respective agencies who are all working diligently to ensure that Connecticut children are cared for and educated, especially during these unprecedented times. I'm honored to share perspectives on some critical opportunities that we at the LEGO Group see to close the achievement gap in the state of Connecticut, and honestly, to push this esteemed group capable of marshaling and allocating the resources required for success in this endeavor to envision the national prominence Connecticut can achieve as we lift present and future quality of life for our state's citizens. This afternoon, I want to really focus in on the importance of prioritizing early childhood development through equitable access to high-quality, play-based childcare. It's my hope that by working together, the public and private sectors can help to close the achievement gap in our state, reducing learning loss and significantly improving outcomes for children and their families. And that what I share with you today sets the stage for future dialogues, not just with the LEGO Group, but with the broader private sector. So I assume that many of you may be familiar with what we do at the LEGO Group. One of the core pieces of our focus is in the space of what we do with play products. So the LEGO brick is, of course, something that many people would know. The LEGO Group remains a family-owned and privately held company based in Billund, Denmark. We host our U.S. headquarters here in Enfield in the state of Connecticut, and we've been in the state of Connecticut since 1973, and we happen to employ about 650 people in our office. Our brand has grown a lot since the time when the brick first came into existence back in the 1950s. And as a company, our collective mission is to inspire the builders of tomorrow. And the toy business does that, the part that I'm most directly involved with, through directly supporting physical and digital play experiences for children all over the world. The LEGO community is also deeply invested in formal education, and the LEGO education business specifically provides hands-on STEAM learning tools and curriculum developed in partnership with school districts across the country. At the same time, another entity, the LEGO Foundation, receives 25% of our annual global profits and dedicates these resources to deliver learning through play research and programming for children, especially underserved children all over the world. And while the Lieutenant Governor did a better than adequate job of introducing myself, I'll add a little bit to that. I have been at the LEGO Group since 2002 and do currently oversee the operations that Lieutenant Governor described for the Americas. I also have the great fortune and honor to chair the LEGO Community US Fund. The love of my wife Nicole, and I are happy that we were able to raise our 5 daughters in Connecticut. We're not quite done yet, but we're getting closer to the end than we were at the beginning. I happen myself to love the outdoors and all season and sports, especially basketball. But where our passions, I think, intersect today is more in the space of equity. And I have come to know more in this space in the last 2 years than I probably knew in my preceding 53. I happen to sit in a role where I have a lot of opportunity to advocate for children and families. And I've come to learn and come to really appreciate and understand, especially in the space of the last 2 years, that people aren't always responsible for the circumstances they live with. And when you look at why that could be, and we examine the underlying commercial, social, and governmental systems that are tilted against equality and access for all, that has me concerned. So I come to you today, both as a citizen and as a corporate leader, with a deep desire for us to see what we can do to address these equity issues. As I'm sure you can all imagine, play is really foundational to everything we do at the LEGO Group. Research proves that play is how children naturally learn. Educational experiences that incorporate the key characteristics of play, things that are joyful, iterative, meaningful, social, and engaging, are how children achieve their potential and develop 21st century skills like creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. And when it comes to early childhood, high quality, playful, responsive care could not be more important. We, both in the private and public sector as change agents, can work together to ensure that first we make families, or we give families and children access to care in their communities, so it's local and it's available. Second, that every child care center provides high quality play-based learning. And third, that proactive measures are taken to significantly reduce the logistical and financial barriers to low-income communities, especially in communities of color, for high-quality childcare. We believe these three elements are absolutely critical for all children to achieve their full potential. In reviewing the Council's master plan, I know that you also believe that these elements are important to our children and to this Council's success. This is evident not just by the facts presented in the plan, although those facts include that by age 4, children who live before the poverty line are developmentally 18 months behind their age group, and that this gap persists at least through age 10. This commitment is also evident in the results and recommendations you have laid out. These have reinforced the value and return on investment in early childhood programming. It's reinforced that it's unacceptable that our community would fail to address racial and economic disparities impacting our youngest learners. And that investing in quality early care and education is not just about kindergarten readiness, although that's important. It's fundamentally about equipping our children with the skills they need for lifelong learning. And it is essentially a moral responsibility that we have to their successful future. And then finally, that this is an incredible opportunity for the state of Connecticut, as well as the private sector companies invested in this state to show national leadership on this issue. Children require continuous access to high quality, adult-led, interactive play-based care to reach their potential and develop the base cognitive, creative, physical, social, and emotional skills that they need to build knowledge on as they grow. But the reality we're facing currently is a childcare industry and families in crisis. Childcare costs have more than doubled in the last 2 decades. 44% of Connecticut residents live in a childcare desert based on research from the Center for American Progress. The access challenge is deeply and unevenly felt. Connecticut is the 3rd most unequal state in the country, with the top 1% of households earning on average 26 times as much as the bottom 99%. All of these statistics that I mentioned come from research and surveys done before the COVID crisis. And my imagination says that the situation can only have gotten worse. A recent U.S. Chambers of Commerce study found that 40% of employers are worried that their employees will not return full-time to work, mostly due to childcare issues. So when childcare is uncertain, we also know that women with young children take on a disproportionate burden for childcare, which has a significantly negative impact on their careers. So this is a problem for the families in our communities too. And it is a problem that challenges our conception of the workforce of today and tomorrow. At the LEGO Group, we're working hard to do our part, but we can't do it alone. We need strong public policy that recognizes and funds childcare because of the essential industry that it is. And we need all the voices at this table to advocate and support our local communities in this effort. In our little world up in Enfield, we happen to have a childcare facility that is co-located with our office, and we provide LEGO employees a childcare subsidy as well as 6 months of parental leave. While we're proud of these benefits, we know that our work in the role of the private sector and with the support of our foundations is to focus on addressing the broader community need for childcare. So over the last few years, through our foundation, we've allocated hundreds of thousands of dollars to organizations like Jumpstart, the Enfield Family Resource Center, and Square One to ensure that care is provided to our youngest and most vulnerable learners and to their families. We are also utilizing the power of our brand to advocate for childcare funding at the federal level. Still more needs to be done to ensure our workforce and communities have the resources they need to ensure ready access to childcare. And to close the achievement gap, children must also have a consistently high quality learning experience. This is where supporting a childcare system that prioritizes adult-led, hands-on, playful learning comes in. Hands-on learning helps promote retention, confidence, and creativity, and helps children make sense of the world around them and their power to change it. This is not just a belief we hold, but parents, teachers, and children also feel the same way. In a recent survey, we found that 93% of parents and 89% of students say hands-on learning improves outcomes and helps children retain knowledge for the future. At the same time, 91% of teachers would like to integrate more hands-on play in their lessons, but there's simply not enough time in the daily schedule. Knowing the difference that hands-on learning can make to level the playing field for children, we believe that there are 3 shifts that could be made to improve child outcomes. Number 1, integrate both short-term and long-term learning goals into instructional design, using evidence-based approaches that foster problem-solving, creativity, and critical thinking. Number 2, prioritize culturally responsive, student-centered learning that uplifts learners' experiences, knowledge, learning needs, and communities. And 3, better prepare teachers to guide students through learning experiences, and that includes self-discovery and make measurable progress towards learning goals. While these recommendations require policy and guidance changes, as a private sector, we can also play a role to support curriculum and teachers. We have invested in teacher professional development programs for next generation science standards in Connecticut. We have also partnered with Horizons International to develop culturally responsive curriculum, knowing that when we create hands-on learning experiences that are targeted to Black and Latinx girls, we can improve achievement outcomes for all children. And most recently, we have funded the Proteus organization and a program called Embrace Race to teach racial tolerance and inclusion to 50,000 children across the country, and to support educators and parents through online communities, research, and toolkits to foster inclusive racial attitudes in children, to nurture resilience in children of color, and critical race thinking in all children, and ultimately with the goal of supporting children to be change makers. Like each of you, we at the LEGO Group are committed to this state and living up to our responsibility as a corporate citizen and large employer. From brick donations to devices and broadband access to Connecticut Alliance districts for help with the at-home learning transition over the past year, to over $1 million in COVID relief funding to the state, we are speaking with you today not because of the monetary contributions the private sector can offer during periods of fiscal strain, but simply to share our expertise, research, and employees' desire to volunteer to make a difference. I personally believe that the Connecticut private sector can play an important role in active advocacy for federal and state support for low-income households to access childcare. We believe there's an opportunity for the public and private sector to work together to advance respective policy aims that will improve the outcomes for children, particularly our most vulnerable children. Equity needs to be at the foundation of all that we do, inside or outside of the schoolhouse. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I hope that you will continue to engage with the LEGO Group as a thought partner, neighbor, and an engaged stakeholder, committed to addressing the achievement gap in Connecticut and giving Connecticut the opportunity to shine nationally as a model for how to constructively address equity in ways that improve all Connecticut citizens' quality of life today and for future generations. Lieutenant Governor, that's what I came to say.
And we really appreciate your leadership, your passion, and your commitment, and know that the governor and I think that equity and inclusion is absolutely critical to everything that we do. And we appreciate your belief as well. and we appreciate your sharing your ideas with our council. We're going to try to keep ourselves on track. We've allocated about 5 minutes for questions. So anyone have any questions for Skip? Well, Skip, looks like you have just done such an amazing job.
I think Commissioner Cardona has a question, Lieutenant Governor.
Okay, yes, please, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, Skip. You know, it's just music to my ears to hear you talk about how important it is to think about the strategies that we're using for our learners to engage authentically and develop those critical skills, thinking skills. I want to thank you personally and publicly for the donation Lego made earlier in the pandemic, where every Bridgeport and Waterbury first grader received a Lego set, and the contributions just continue. I want to acknowledge and thank you for that. You know, the smiles on the faces of these little 5- and 6-year-olds when they were engaging with Lego was really heartwarming, especially during the beginning of the pandemic when we were trying to make sense of it. You know, when they say it takes a village, you're just a great example of that. Really, on behalf of the students, their families, the district leaders, the educators who are beneficiaries of the donation, thank you for putting our kids first in Connecticut, and for that donation in particular. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm on behalf of my 18,000 colleagues around the world. I would love to say it was our pleasure. I wish the circumstances were very different, but we know that we can play a role in contributing to the communities that we serve in, and so we're grateful for that chance. Thank you.
Commissioner and Skip, thank you for that. Anyone else have a question?
Commissioner Bai.
Madam Governor, yeah, quickly, Skip, talk about music to my ears. It was wonderful, as Commissioner Cardona said, you know, for those of us that spend our time thinking about how to reach children and families, the work that LEGO does is great. I just wanted to thank you as well, and also really thank Jennifer from your company, who has been reaching out and helping us think through how to appropriately engage business as we work to build an improved early childhood system, the one that you referenced, with high quality teachers, learning, preparing kids, not just for kindergarten, but for life with some of those skills. And I just wanted to sort of ask you, because we have you, that the Governor's Workforce Council and the Council on Women and Girls, working with the Lieutenant Governor's office, working on bringing those two groups together, and will really want to engage with business around this issue of childcare and the role of business. And LEGO's really been a leader. So I guess my question is, you know, will you and Jennifer be willing to take part in those conversations and help our state as we're reimagining childcare, which is a field in deep crisis right now, but that we know we're going to work hard to help to rebuild.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I'll answer for both of us, even though it's probably wiser if I let Jen speak at this point. But yes is the answer to your question. We would be very pleased to be part of that conversation. Less because we think we have answers, more because there's probably a lot we can learn from being part of it. And if there's some stuff we can share in between, then that would be awesome too.
And I'll just say, Skip, that the governor and I are working very closely with our federal delegation, because Congresswoman Toddler has a bill in requesting $50 billion for early childhood care, and also Senator Blumenthal has a similar piece of legislation in the U.S. Senate. So we are hoping that when federal funding comes to us in Connecticut, hopefully sometime in January, that it will include a massive infusion of money to expand our early childhood programs, because we have lost so many of those spots. So we do appreciate your leadership, because we think it's going to take state public policy makers, dollars from the federal government and the private sector working together to figure this out. So we're going to take you up on your offer.
Very good. I look forward to that. Jen looks a little more concerned than I do, but we look forward to that.
Jen had a little bit of a heads up that that we would be engaging LEGO as a leading partner from the private sector in our childcare efforts. And we really do thank you for some of the work that you've already done to help guide us in how to engage the private sector overall. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, Commissioner Bai, for bringing that up in this forum. But we will be in touch for sure more formally at a later time. So thank you.
Very good. That will be great, Cherie. Great to see you too.
All right. So Skip, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay with us as we finish our meeting, but we understand you've got a lot on your plate, and understand if you have to scoot off, and we really appreciate so much your sharing your ideas, and we will be in touch.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I actually will need to jump off, but I don't need to jump off for a bit. If I can hang out on mute and just learn for a little bit, that would be great for me.
Please, we would love to have you, because we are going to begin to review today's result statements and policy recommendations on early child care and education, curriculum, creativity, and innovation. So we're going to start with early care and education, and to lead us in that discussion will be Commissioner Beth Bai. Commissioner, all yours.
Okay, I'm expecting some slides to come up. Super, thank you so much. So we'll go over this, and I think after each page I'll pause so that if other commissioners have items to add in, they can do that. So I really appreciate the way you're working this, Lieutenant Governor, because it does help us see progress, but also areas where we need to continue to make progress. So the policy recommendation was around the wages of early childhood professionals, which Skip mentioned in his comments. They are the lowest paid professionals in our state. They tend to be women, predominantly women. It's one of those wage segregated professions, but we need to ensure that we have high quality teachers for children. Every parent knows that's what's at the core of a high quality early childhood education, is that adult. So I wanted to just talk through some of what's happened since this policy recommendation. I had a chance ahead of time to type these in, but others may have things to add in. The Office of Early Childhood is undertaking a wage study right now as part of our systems reform. We're lucky we have a preschool development grant, and we're working with Social Finance, a consulting group that will be looking at what's happening in Connecticut and other parts of the country. We also have a legislatively mandated compensation schedule due, where the legislature is asking OEC to produce what is an appropriate compensation schedule. That's a really important step, and it shows some collaboration with the legislature. Also, this all happens in a broad national context, and I'm sure Jennifer knows about from her work at LEGO, where NAEYC is working on something called Power to the Profession, which is national standards around early childhood licensure for 3 levels. But with that, they're asking states to adopt this so people can cross state lines and still teach. But there is the issue of we need to get the compensation there to ask for the people to work toward these credentials. So those are the wage notes. The next issue was around an assessment system, and Commissioner Cardona or I know Charlene may add in, but at the Office of Early Childhood, we do have early learning and development standards, which are sent out to every program. They're really high quality standards. And so those are out. We feel like we have really good baseline. Here's what we expect of kids. And working on an innovation. We also have a screening called Sparkler, which is an app-based screening that parents complete on their children and feed into our data system around that to talk to us and let us see early if children are falling behind so we can intervene. The State Department of Ed has a kindergarten entry inventory, and Commissioner Cardona and I, before the pandemic, had some preliminary discussions about how we could maybe reduce the number of assessments on children and think about an end of preschool assessment so the kindergarten teachers would have that information right off the bat. I don't know if Charlene or Miguel want to weigh in on the kindergarten entry assessment, but these are just statewide tools to assess where children are in those earliest years.
Hi, thank you. Yes, just Charlene, have you jump in with more specific information, but what we're trying to do is get a baseline of where our learners are, developmentally appropriate baseline, if you will, so that we can make sure that the instruction that happens is conducive to what their needs are. So as Commissioner Bai mentioned, we've been in communication, and we're going to continue those communications to make sure that we have a universal tool that can really guide our actions to make sure we're meeting the needs of our learners. Charlene, do you have anything to add?
Just to add, Commissioner, and to the group here, that there's 6 domains that's a part of that assessment. And just for folks to know, for example, that social emotional is included in there, which is really so important and critical now. And we've heard from our colleagues here who work with the assessment that for this past assessment, that there were more questions about how can some of it be done in a virtual space. And so we've provided that level of guidance as well. So that's there, but just wanted this group to know kind of the areas that's being assessed.
Great, thank you so much for weighing in on that. One other thing I might add to the notes because of the public-private partnership is that the OEC's Ages and Stages questionnaire, which is the Sparkler, is connected with 211 Child Development Info Line, so that if a child needs intervention in those early years, they're connected up to a referral source. But 211's a great partner this way for families. So the inventory is there for families to use, even if they're not enrolled in school, but maybe through home visiting. And that way, SDE and OEC can know if a child shows up as needing early intervention. So I just wanted to mention that. The next is there was legislation that all early childhood teachers have a bachelor's by 2020, particularly those that are state funded. But that consistently has been pushed out because without the compensation to get those degrees, it's been really difficult. And we also need to make the higher ed investments to make sure our higher ed partners have what they need to support students through this. So right now the BA is to 2029. And again, OEC is working with national partners on matching up state by state. So anything else to add on those? Anyone on that page?
And I, Commissioner Bai, hi, it's Stephen Hagedis here. Can I just mention the
Hi,
work
Stephen.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That would be super.
Yeah, we've just, with support from our leaders, with Commissioner Bai and Commissioner Cardona, we have put in a request, a proposal for $2.4 million to a consortium to support our work in this area. And it's I'm a principal lead on that with partners across the higher ed spectrum, both in the publics and private. So I just wanted to, hopefully we'll hear positive news very soon, and it really gets at the heart of the issues that Commissioner Bai is bringing up here. So I think we put it in our notes from the response from CSCU, but fingers crossed we'll hear soon, and we'll have some positive resources to begin to try and address some of these challenges. So thank you, Commissioner Bai, and thank you, Commissioner Cardona.
Thank you, Stephen. And this was before COVID, but it was the first time I was involved when we had to do something in 2 weeks, and you pulled together higher ed faculty from around the whole state, along with some of your colleagues, to put in an application that got through the first round. So the state is already a finalist, but we could not have done that without your leadership, Stephen. So, okay, next slide. Okay, so the next slide is to create a pre-K to grade 3 literacy approach. We have sponsored, we have a literacy focus in our early learning and development standards, which we send to all preschool programs. Additionally, OEC funds a pre-K to 3 leadership academy, which brings together public school teachers and private pre-K teachers for a year-long study with UConn in pre-K to 3 leadership and how do we advance learning through those years. So I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know if Charlene or Miguel has anything to add here.
I don't see the commissioner, but I know that we've been working together. I see the legislation from 2012. That is there. Oh, I hear the commissioner is back, working with UConn. Commissioner?
Yeah, right. I was going to comment a little bit about some work that we'll be doing with curriculum in upcoming slides. But, you know, when this was written, it was basically the acknowledgement that if we don't get early childhood right, we're just going to be catching up after that. The early childhood quality programming and the continuity of programming is really the foundation of our educational system. So that is the priority. You'll hear a little bit more later on some of the things we're doing in the agency.
Super. And I know there have been changes in the higher ed system. I don't know, Stephen, if you or anyone from higher ed who's here wants to speak to the focus on the curriculum for literacy for pre-K to grade 3, or if there, you know, have there been changes since 2012 that aren't reflected here?
I can supply some updates offline. That's certainly we have made quite a lot of developments since my time. I've been in Connecticut since 2014, and we've had to address quite a lot.
Okay, so there's efforts in higher ed to focus on early childhood literacy as part of the professional development framework for teachers and teacher prep.
Right.
Super. Okay. Next, facilitate center-based and family childcare provider training and cultural competence. Because the Office of Early Childhood received the Preschool Development Grant, we've been able to offer WIDA training, which is training in working with families. It's out of the University of Wisconsin, who are bilingual, and we've had hundreds of teachers take part in this. And actually, during the pandemic, when some programs were closed, we had many teachers take part in this training. It's very specific, very targeted at working with bilingual families. And I don't know if SDE has any initiatives on this to add. We were just fortunate to have that federal funding to be able to make this just part of what we offer. Okay. Next is parent voice. This is something we're particularly proud of, and I'm so grateful to whoever set the original goals because parent voice is critical in building high quality early childhood systems. We're very fortunate the governor's appointment to the Head Start Collab office, Elena Trueworthy, has a lot of experience with this, and she runs our parent council, and we also link with DCF. I know Commissioner Durante's your work in lifting up parent voices helps inform early childhood, and I know it also informs your system. I don't know if you have anything to add about that Head Start collaboration.
No, but that's an example of the really strong public-private partnership and the constituent voice to, you know, elevate what it is we need to focus on in terms of the whole child in the context of a family.
Right. Right. The other thing happening, again, the Preschool Development Grant has allowed us funding and will allow us to hire staff to establish a parent cabinet at OEC so the parents have a say in what's happening. One of the things we're working on that's challenging is finding a way to pay parents who participate. They give many hours. Everyone else at governance tables is being paid to sit there And our parents, who are very often already strained financially and for time, we ask them for this commitment. And that's been a challenge. So we don't have to solve that here, but if anyone on the call has experience within their agency doing this, or ideas about how to make sure that parents that participate are treated as experts, bringing their expert advice, that would be great. The other thing going on is we're in the midst of systems reform, and this is one of the goals of the Governor's Workforce Council, and that requires, we're asking to require that a much larger percentage of the local governance councils have parents as a part of their council, and not just one parent, but that parents have more of a voice. And I just have to call out from right when I came in, Charlene Russell Tucker and Judy Carson sent me the great work that they've been doing on developing parent councils and building parent capacity and having parents as partners. So Charlene, I found some links before this call today, but I'm sure you're particularly proud of this work. If you want to add anything here, I think it would be great, because I feel funny even talking about it with the great work you all have done here.
Commissioner, thank you so much for the opportunity to say more. So we stood up in the agency a few years ago, a Commissioners Roundtable for Family and Community Engagement in Education. So the Commissioners Roundtable that advised the Commissioner of Education on policy issues. And we meet frequently, and one of the deliverables from that roundtable was working with OEC and the department and other partners to come up with a statewide definition of family engagement for Connecticut. And it really was nation-leading work. Other states have now kind of copied and replicated the process we engage. But we do have full, equal, and equitable partnership with families, a framework document that is also online and available. And this definition was created by families, with families engagement, and it was a long process. We are really proud of that work, and it is driving a lot of all the work that we're doing across agencies. And our goal is to be able to share that with other sister agencies as well, as so many of us have family engagement as a core component of the work that we do. So we have a framework that we've done. We've done some charts that go along with it, which other states, I said, have replicated, basically saying what does high impact family engagement look like in the different contexts of early childhood, in elementary schools, in after school. And it was the issue of saying, this is good, but it could be even improved and do better. And what does that look like? And so we're really proud of that work and be more than happy to share it with other members of our group here as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene. I think this is a really good example where we owe a debt of gratitude to the 2012 goal setting group, where you set a goal and it puts people's attention on making sure parents have a voice, set priorities. And today, I think this particular item is one where we see progress. Okay, next one. Next, we have infant toddler system of care. And in Connecticut, pre-COVID, we were short 50,000 infant toddler spaces for parents who needed to work. And we know this is just a recipe for disaster in terms of child health and safety, and in terms of parents being able to provide for their families and enter the workforce. We were able to, in 2019, significantly increase the Care for Kids rates for infants and toddlers. We've also made major investments, and during the pandemic, really accelerated those in staff family childcare networks to try to create and offer families more ways and places to access infant toddler care. Thanks to 4CT, there was $1 million investment in staff family childcare networks, which are organizations set up to support family childcare homes and connect them with other homes and provide them with business supports, because they're small businesses really in their homes. So we've made tremendous progress here in infant toddler system of care. But there's more to do for sure. This is a real shortage area. Anyone want to add into? Okay. Next is ensuring screening and assessment and monitoring. This is going on through home visiting. I know DCF also does some monitoring of children's health and development. I talked about Sparkler already, linked to Child Development 211, and also our birth to 3 evaluators are out there assessing children. One of the gaps is really where children birth to 3 maybe are assessed to receive services. And in Connecticut, we have actually a pretty high bar for needing services. So there are a lot of children who are still below where they should be developmentally, but they don't qualify for birth to 3. And I know, Vanessa, you run into a lot of these families where the kids would really benefit, but they don't quite qualify. We try to fill in with home visiting, but there are only 3,000 home visiting spaces for tens of thousands of families that could benefit. So we've made progress on screening and assessment, but there's definitely still a lot of needs out there.
Certainly too, because a lot of the assessments are child focused, and we become involved typically from a parental capacity focus. So I think sometimes the full range of home visiting has to take into account both the needs of the child and the capacity of the parent, and being able to develop those out. But I think our partnerships are strong, and we think about that even from the infant mental health stage as we move into the early childhood space.
And Commissioner Durantes, it might be a good place to just make note of the work Mike Williams and you are doing around bringing agencies together around assessing and supporting children's emotional health and mental health, because that really is part of assessment. Both Miguel and Charlene, I know, understand that emotional health coming into school will affect learning as much as cognitive health. So I'm really grateful that your agency has taken leadership on that.
Certainly, that's the Children's Behavioral Health Plan, and the kind of redesign in terms of gaps in assessments across the state of how children's behavioral health is fiscally supported throughout the full continuum. So I entered Children's Behavioral Health Plan updates on one of the other categories, but it's also good to mention it here.
Great, and also really grateful to DSS and Bill Halsey, we're looking to leverage federal funds to support this work with Medicaid, with some very narrow definitions around early childhood health and mental health. Okay, the next is another one where there's been really great progress. This is an area where Connecticut led in the 90s and then really had dropped back. And I think this recommendation in 2012 was a really great push. And we've relaunched regional accreditation support in 2020, right before the pandemic. But we have regional partners in each part of the state who are supporting childcare programs to get accredited. And also as part of our COVID relief, we're agreeing to pay all accreditation fees for programs that are at this phase because they're under such financial stress right now. And also expanded family childcare networks and our funding support of family childcare accreditation as well. So I think this is a success story where we've made a lot of progress. Okay, next. We're almost there. Another area where we totally reached the goal is that OEC is able to complete one unannounced licensing visit each year. That was great progress. I think we have to thank Governor Malloy for his investments there, recognizing that we had to keep an eye on the health and safety of children. The other thing that just happened in November is we've been working for several years on launching a website where parents can see those health and safety reports live and online. So now you can look up any childcare center in the state of Connecticut. You can click on it on 211 childcare, and then you can see 5 years of inspection reports, which we think, again, in terms of giving parents information and helping them make good choices, this has been a really great improvement. And finally, using Info Finder, Public Health Service, and Social Service to create a campaign to increase the number of students with limited target language exposure. So this is around something that's just this huge problem with where certain children just don't have exposure to as much language in those critical years when their brain is growing and making those connections. It's building the foundation for later language. I know that one change, I didn't have a whole lot here, and maybe Charlene and Miguel have something to add, but we've just issued a new RFP that's looking to reach parents even earlier, which will give us a chance to talk to them about how important it is. You know, a new parent, a 17-year-old parent, or even a 25-year-old parent, first time, they look at that baby, they don't know all that the baby's taking in terms of language. And so we do think shifting home visiting a bit to the earlier years will help this. But Miguel and Charlene, do you have anything to add here? I know there was a grant in Hartford. I don't know if you all were a part of that, but to work on this, but anything else? No, okay. So this is an area where I think we can do some real thinking about public health campaigns around how important it is to talk to your children. I know at OEC we do have a public health campaign about child development that we were working on before the pandemic, but we're not there yet. And I know Vanessa and I had preliminary discussions about sort of cross-agency work to launch a public health campaign about child development to support parent and provider knowledge. So I think that ends my section. Happy to answer any questions. I hope that was fast enough.
You are right on target, Commissioner, and we'll just look if there are any questions or comments right now. If not, what we appreciate your leading the council work in this important area, Commissioner. And what we're going to do is we're going to move on to review and discussion on the results statement and policy recommendation with respect to inside the schoolhouse, using curriculum and closing the achievement gap in low performing schools. And that's going to be immediately followed by inside the schoolhouse, creativity and innovation, and the achievement gap synopsis. And both of these pieces, discussion items, are going to be led by our Commissioner Cardona. Commissioner Cardona, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for your leadership here, and just the work that we're doing, needs strong leadership and cohesive partnerships in your fostering through these meetings. I feel fortunate that one of the highlights of my educational experiences and career was the opportunity to serve on the Achievement Gap Task Force back in 2010, 2011, 2012, all the way up to 2014, where these recommendations came from. And it's worth repeating that to develop the recommendations that you're seeing in front of you, that you're hearing about, took 3 years worth of listening to different stakeholders, families, students, educators, healthcare folks, just a wide array of experts in Connecticut to come up with these. You'll notice some are identified as in the schoolhouse, some are outside of the schoolhouse. If you recall, 2012 was the year of ed reform, and teacher evaluation was really a big focus. So we felt back then that it was critically important to identify strategies within the schoolhouse that we can control in the education sector, but also identify factors outside of the schoolhouse. Housing patterns in Connecticut, access to healthcare, quality healthcare, and other factors outside of the schoolhouse that either diminish or widen the bandwidth for learning for our students in Connecticut. So, that's a little bit of context. And one of the things that came out of that group was the belief that if you put the different hardworking agencies in Connecticut around the table together to problem solve together, the best results are possible. And I'm fortunate to sit on this interagency council with all my colleagues here and learn from them and see where we overlap. So the presentation that I'll have now is really focusing on specifically what are some of the things that were being recommended almost 8-10 years ago in the schoolhouse around curriculum. And I hope to address some of the strategies that have taken place as a result of those recommendations and the work in the agency. But before I do that, I have to say how pleased I was earlier this week to serve as a guest to our Commissioner Vanessa Durante's DCF Commissioner, who presented to the National Governors Association on a strategy in Connecticut of having different agencies working well together. And she asked me to join her, and we could have had all of us here. But I hope your ears were ringing on Tuesday afternoon, because we were bragging to the National Governors Association about the Interagency Council and the collaborative nature in Connecticut led by our governor and lieutenant governor. When you lead with the expectation that people come together around a common goal, good things are possible. So thank you again, Commissioner Durantes, for the opportunity to present with you, and for recognizing the important work of this council. So I'll jump right in. I likely will not, I'll focus on some areas more than others, but the first recommendation was that the agency, State Department of Education, will develop, modify curriculum documents aligned to the standards, Common Core standards, and national subject area standards for grades K through 8. Keeping in mind back then, the Common Core standards were fairly new, and there was a fragmented approach and maybe disconnect. So, some of the work that we've done at the agency prior to me becoming commissioner, and now some of the focus areas are to have model curricular resources and materials available in ELA, math, science, social studies, and CTE. The establishment of a district health framework is something that I'm going to be really working aggressively to accomplish in the next year or so, where we're identifying a framework for district success, which includes almost like an audit of your curriculum. Is it high quality? Is it connected to the standards? Does it have enough representation of various diverse cultures and different backgrounds? So this district health framework will include some of the tenets of this recommendation that was made some time ago. There's also the development of the K-12 curriculum design framework. Again, this is a little bit more nuanced in terms of having districts look at what curriculum they have and make sure that they're using it almost like as a mirror to look at it and say, what does it have? What doesn't it have? We have to make sure that what we put in front of students is high quality, and we need to have benchmarks onto which these assessments are made. So moving along, and my colleagues at the agency, this is a team effort, so feel free to jump in, and I can see Charlene and Kari on my screen, so just wave if you want, or just jump right in. Okay, SDE shall provide fully developed model of units of study within the documents for each grade level around major concepts, again, connected to the Common Core. I think I should have started with this. We have, up until June of 2020, which is 4 or 5 months ago, it seems like an eternity ago, but 4 or 5 months ago, there was a vacancy at the Chief Academic Officer position for over a year and a half. So we were able to add to that, get someone in that position who has an understanding of how important quality curriculum is, and able to move that work. Our folks in the academics office have been working really hard providing materials, but I think now being fully staffed, we're going to be able to connect those dots a little bit more explicitly. So the Learning Hub was something that was created. The Learning Hub, the academic staff have worked really hard over the summer to develop a virtual hub, if you will, of materials for students who were thrust into remote learning. And this Learning Hub has materials that are age appropriate and rigorous, so that we don't have situations in Connecticut due to the pandemic that have some students accessing high quality curriculum, and in other places students are receiving Google worksheets or Google links or Pinterest lessons. We need to have high quality lessons for all students, and that's our responsibility. And it became much more important when we were forced to remote learning. The Learning Hub is that. The Black and Latino Studies curriculum, you might have read that this moved forward. Our State Board of Education unanimously and enthusiastically approved this. This really dates before I was Commissioner of Education. Tremendous work being done by our legislative partners, by our parents, our students, advocating for this, our educators. I'm just proud to be a part of this. So we do have the Black and Latino Studies curriculum moving forward. I think when this recommendation was made, it was really to say we need a model curriculum, K-8, so that districts can have something in front of them if they don't have the resources to develop or make or purchase materials on their own. We're not there yet. We're going there, but we're not there yet. But we recognize that having quality material standards for curriculum and reflection tools that they can assess their own is a good start. But this is something that we're going to be aggressively moving forward on. Social emotional learning, I'm going to ask Charlene to comment a little bit on that. So you can see that we're not just looking at academic prowess. We're looking at the social emotional development of children. That's the foundation on which students learn. So Charlene?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner. And what we currently have K-3 curricular standards for social emotional learning right now that has been developed, I think, a couple of years now. And we're working on 412 to be added. But a part of that as well, we've recently done a survey with districts just to see where they are. We needed to get a landscape of what is being implemented in districts. There are different programs, there are even different curricular standards, and we want to make sure that we have state standards to which that our districts can connect. So we are actively engaged in working on that as we speak. And that is also linked to the work that we've done in the framework, the school counseling framework that I know teeing John up so that he can jump in and speak a little bit about that as well, because they're truly not disconnected, but it is certainly on our radar. So when we think about how do you infuse social emotional learning into curricular standards, that is something that we're actively working on. John?
Thank you, Charlene. So the school counseling framework is a comprehensive framework for a K-12, the entire K-12 system. And what it does is essentially redefine the work of school counselors. Many of us remember that school counselors were often called upon at the end of 8th grade to pick your high school classes and toward the end of 12th grade to help you apply for colleges. Well, this has been reworked to make sure that school counselors are available to provide comprehensive supports to all students, not just the students going to college, but to think about how they can support their social emotional learning and how they can support them emotionally throughout and academically throughout their entire K-12 experience. The other really exciting part about this is the State Board of Education issued the framework for districts with a position statement regarding the importance of school counseling and social emotional supports for students throughout their academic career K-12. So it just elevates the importance of that, and we're really excited about implementing that and assisting schools in implementing that. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Charlene. Next slide, please. Okay, I just said this is a visual of the Learning Hub. I would invite you to go take a look at that and you see, if you could, yeah, there you go, thank you. If you see there's different components, now I can't see it that well. Let me pull it up on my other screen here. As the governor says, if you have good glasses, you can see this, right? So there, it includes social emotional materials, a curriculum, a K-12 model curriculum hub. So, in an earlier slide, I talked a little bit about trying to lay the foundation for some universal standards for high quality curriculum. So we're working on that. There's an online portal there. There's a portal there for parents. So, in essence, this whole Learning Hub was developed over the last couple of months to kind of pull things together. And it was accelerated because of COVID. We knew that a lot of our families needed something, in districts too, needed something to start with, right? They're building theirs, but they needed something to start with because we didn't have the luxury of planning for the pandemic. It kind of just was thrust on us. What we're hearing is that districts are utilizing the resources here to supplement the work that they're doing. And in those districts that are struggling to kind of get their curricular tools together, they have grade level content available for their learners, remote learners, in a way that they didn't have it prior to May of 2020. So a bit of a silver lining there. That's the Connecticut Learning Hub. Check it out. See if there's something there. Give us some feedback on it. We're always trying to make it better. Okay, next slide, please. And I'll go, I see there's a lot of words here. I'm going to go a little bit quicker, but don't hesitate to stop me with questions. Districts are going to be recognized as underperforming with persistent achievement gaps. They'll be encouraged and incentivized to undergo curriculum audits with SDE. Now, the word audit sounds so scary, right? We're really partnering with districts. We recognize, Michael Fullen's work, right? You lead with support before accountability. You start with support and then you add equal parts accountability. We really recognize that many of these districts are working twice as hard to get the same results that other districts are working hard to get. So we want to make sure that we're working in partnership with these districts. We have cross-divisional teams in our agency so that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, and we can work in unison to support the district the best way. We look at how we provide incentives, financial incentives, or target alliance funds or school turnaround funds on research-based proven strategies to turn around school performance or student performance. Again, the district curriculum design framework is in there. We need to have standards through which we're assessing our work. Moving along, the State Department of Education will develop high-quality Model K-5 curricula, reading and math with considerations for students with ELLs. So I'll talk a little bit about this. We do have digital tools being procured because we know that even post-pandemic, digital and blended learning is still going to be a part of our repertoire. I think we know that, and we know moving forward we have to get better. I also want to share that we identified a director of equity and language. While equity should permeate our entire agency, we have someone whose position it is to look at some of those inequities that exist in Connecticut and work in partnership with districts to make sure that the right strategies are being utilized to address that inequity. This person also has a good understanding of language development, second language development. We know a largest subgroup of learners that's growing is our English learner population. So we need to make sure that at the agency, we're providing support and guiding best practice around second language development. This is critical for Connecticut's success. Okay, and then the last one on this page.
Miguel, can I just ask one thing here?
Sure.
I think when we have K-12 curriculum, it might be helpful because you all are creating and supporting pre-K-12 curriculum. There are like 19,000 preschoolers in public school in Connecticut. I know they're split in both places. So I just think even though these are 2012 recommendations, it doesn't really recognize the role that pre-K is playing increasingly in public school.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's funny. I had a conversation with a colleague at the agency yesterday about, I use the word blurring, the phrase blurring the lines, right? Just like I believe firmly that all teachers are English learner teachers, right? Yes, we have certain certifications for teachers that are bilingual teachers, but all teachers serve students that are English learners. So we need to kind of widen the expectations of all educators that come in contact with our English learners. So is the case with early childhood. And we have to make sure that we're blurring the lines between where one program ends and one continues. And, as you noted earlier in your slides, we've begun that work and we're contracting with Ed Council to really push that and scale that up throughout the state of Connecticut and make sure we have standards for doing that throughout our state. So your point is well taken, and that's something that we prioritize as well. Charlene, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to ask Commissioner Bai, and as Kari's taking notes, if you wanted, should we be making a note here?
I just think we should take a note that when we say K-12, we say pre-K.
Oh, I'm sorry, pre-K. It's funny, I was complimented yesterday that our website, and usually when I'm talking, I'm including pre-K to 12.
Miguel, you have always been on Team Pre-K. Long before you were commissioner, you were part of leaders throughout public schools engaging with early childhood. So I know you mean it. I just think these public documents should recognize.
You're right. That was pre. You're going back 8 to 10 years. You're right. I think the vernacular and the mindsets, the mental models now have really embraced pre-K, pre-kindergarten. So thank you for pointing that out.
And Commissioner, if I can just jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
Real quick, I just wanted to let folks know that, and certainly appreciate your comments, Commissioner Bai. We will be coming out with what we refer to as our Healthy and Balanced Living Curriculum Framework that will be coming out. And this is a comprehensive curriculum framework for health education and physical education. And to your point, Commissioner Bai, it does begin at pre-K, and pre-K to 2 is a band that we have specific benchmarks for and specific understanding of concepts that are developmentally appropriate from pre-K on.
Thank you, John. Stephen, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just put it in the comments as well, Miguel, we also are now preparing teachers pre-K-12 in some areas as well. I think just to add to that. So it's an important update. So from the higher ed perspective, we're also, we're ensuring that.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving to assessments, assessments are only as good as their ability to drive policy and instruction, right? So we recently came out with a position statement on sensible assessments. Are we over-assessing kids and reducing their time in instruction? Are we evaluating why we're assessing students and when we need to roll back because the assessments are being done for assessment purposes and because we've done it that way, or to be an arbitrary data point for an evaluation system that maybe is not as tightly connected to what the ultimate outcomes we want for our learners? So we've engaged in that process, and we're going to continue to do that. With that said, we recognize that if we don't have formative assessments that give teachers and school folks the opportunity to see where their learners are in relation to content standards, then we're missing an opportunity to make sure we're challenging our students with high expectations. So students could be doing exceptionally well on curriculum that's 2 grade levels below and go through schooling thinking, I'm doing I'm great, I'm a superstar, then get to higher education and do poorly. There was an article by TNTP called Opportunity Myth that said that in many communities, the grade level standards are so low that the A+ in that class is not really reflective of what kids should know at that age. So when we talk about assessment, we're really making sure that students are at their grade level area and have the depth of knowledge on topics that are critically important for that age. We've prioritized that. The interim assessment blocks that were developed over the last 4 to 5 years have really driven districts. And I know because I came from a district that relied very heavily on those to make sure that my learners at all schools were learning consistently high quality materials at a high level so that we can prevent exacerbation of achievement gaps. Okay, so they're critically important when used well. So formative assessments have really increased in our work over the last 5 to 8 years. And we have a learning growth model, right? So in the past, the Connecticut Mastery Test, you had a benchmark. And if anybody was under that benchmark, it would have been a failing. Now we're looking at growth over time. And what we're finding is that some of our least performing schools or districts are making the greatest growth gains. That's really promising. We're able to figure that out through our formative assessment system. Next slide, please. I'm going to switch gears here and again invite my colleagues from the agency to jump in at any point. But a lot was discussed earlier about the digital divide, and we're really pleased with the Everybody Learns campaign, the ability to accelerate access for our families in Connecticut, not only to devices, but if you think about it from like a 3-legged stool, you have the device, the connectivity, and then the content. A lot of times people forget about the content, right? You could have a device and you could have connectivity, but if what you're connecting to is very low standards or very poor quality, then that will influence the ability for that child to be successful in learning high quality content. So the Learning Hub, we're hoping, is providing that content piece. We have the connectivity and the device that our partners at the Dalio Foundation and the Governor's Everybody Learns campaign have really helped. So this one says the Department of Education, in collaboration with DECD, shall ensure that all students have the opportunity to learn in classroom environments that promote cultural creativity and innovation. This is something that, back then, Glenn Thames was a member of the Achievement Gap Task Force. Now she's Deputy Commissioner of DEC. So I really look forward to not only looking at the comments that are there, like the Learning Hub, the technology supports, but also really taking this to the next level in the coming months with our partners at DECD. So we're going to continue to work with our sister agencies to develop programming. I don't know if she's there and she wanted to say something. I thought I heard someone. Okay.
Commissioner, this is Charlene. I just wanted to add a bit more when we talk about technology, the digital divide, and the work that other sister agencies are doing. I'm eager to have us be able to work together even on the family engagement component of this. Just this past week, we advertised a webinar for families on learning more about remote learning, just navigating this new learning space. And we had close to 1,000 registered for that webinar. And so we have an opportunity. And then they asked at the end, because it was only an hour, that they wanted more. They wanted to stay later and they wanted more. So we're now planning for a more consistent way of reaching directly with families. They posted a lot of questions in the chat, even about social emotional well-being. And we had a CCMC developmental pediatrician on with us, just talking about stress and trauma and what to do. So it is an opportunity, as I've heard housing and others, I know DCF, talking about families. If we can pool our resources and know how to reach the maximum amount of families with the messages that we want, I think we do have an opportunity there. Talking about, I know the devices are certainly necessary, but may not be sufficient. As you've also heard from families that could be afraid to even the laptop, to be able to assist younger siblings with doing that. So whatever we can do together, I think is critically important, and this is a great space to connect on that.
Thank you. And I'm going to tee up my partner, Doug Casey. I'm sure he has some comments there. But before I do that, I'll share also that we are finalizing the development with some partners and our gifted and talented advocates and partners to create a playbook for students to have access to materials that really promote creativity and innovation. We're going to make that available to all districts free of charge and encourage districts to really push this idea of creativity and innovation to all of their students. So materials will be coming out within the next month for all districts to promote creativity and innovation. Doug, did you want to jump in here?
Just a big +1 to everything that you and Deputy Commissioner Russell Tucker mentioned. It takes entire communities and reiterating those messages of get engaged. There are supports there, and I would also just share out at a high level. There are so many wonderful exemplary programs in communities across the state. I just learned this week about one in Norwalk where they have a community navigators program of specialists who are reaching out to 400 families, addressing everything from social, emotional, social services, digital equity, how to get connected. I mean, it's a wonderful model, and it's one of many out there. There's so much great work that's going on. Our schools are really becoming social services arms. They have for years, and this is one part of that, and it's a reflection of their care and compassion for these families. So, yeah, thanks for allowing me to share that. Keep reiterating that message of get connected and support those students.
Doug, you've been instrumental in really making this happen. It's one thing to have these ideas, but you know how to make the connections happen. No pun intended, but thank you for what you're doing. It's really making a difference for the learners in Connecticut. I'll be brief here. The last one, K-12 districts, schools show persistent gaps in academic achievement, should provide rich and diverse arts and extracurricular programming. The arts still are one of the primary hooks for our students. Sometimes students that feel disengaged or not yet connected or don't feel strong academically really thrive through the arts. So having a strong arts program is critically important. And, you know, one of the first things we did in Connecticut that some of our neighboring states were a little hesitant to do is identify standards and safety protocols to allow for art programs to continue during a pandemic. You know, we had marching bands in fields in May and June. They needed to be around each other in a safe space. So we really prioritize the arts. You hear a lot about sports. Let me tell you, the arts are really the hook for so many students, and we want to continue the arts. We know that your dendrites connect better when you're engaged in the arts. So we want to highlight the arts, not just as an extracurricular, but as part of the core programming for public education. And we're going to continue to do that. We wanted to engage student voices recently. So we did a thought exchange. We're getting feedback from students. We've been hearing from a lot of different other stakeholders, and that's critically important, but we need to hear from our students. We have about 515,000 students in the state of Connecticut, and really they're the consumers of what we provide. So we need to be more astute to listening and be more explicit about that. And hopefully through that, we'll hear the importance of arts and how we can continue to move that work forward. I'm going to close by, next slide, please. I'd be remiss if in an interagency council for addressing achievement disparities, I don't talk a little bit about what we're trying to do to maintain equity during a pandemic. Two things. You know, the thing on the left where it says assessment and accountability, we talked a little bit about assessments before. You know, if you're sick, you don't want to reduce the number of times you go to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor more to find out what's going on. During a pandemic, when students have limited access to high quality learning at the beginning and fragmented or disrupted access, we have to make sure we know where they are. So what we're trying to do in Connecticut is say, we want to know where our learners are. We're trying to engage in a way where we can find out what dip happened as a result of COVID, so we can put our policies and resources where it's needed most. So we're looking to work with our partners to put a sensible assessment structure in the spring. We didn't do assessments last year, so now we're 2 years worth of gains or lack of gains that we need to assess to better identify. We do have alarming achievement gaps in Connecticut. We need to be aggressive about making sure we stop them and close them. But we're disconnecting it from accountability. It's not fair that we hold accountability measures to districts, or I don't want to say punish, but you know, hold resources if they're doing their very best with what they can. So we're disconnecting or disconnecting the accountability with the assessments, which is something that we hadn't done before. We're doing it because we want the assessment to be an authentic gauge of where we need to go. Moving to the right, we created standards for remote learning. Absent this, anything basically could count for remote learning. We want to make sure that there's standards for remote learning so that students that are in less resource districts and students that are in higher resource districts don't have two totally different experiences with remote learning. So we work really hard in our agency to try to develop standards, and we communicated them early, and we're working with districts to make sure that the bar is kept high. And what we're doing on the other side is assessing where our learners are so we could be responsive to their needs. So I just wanted to close with that. And thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for an opportunity to speak. Charlene and John or Kari, if there's anything you want to add to this, please do. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
All right. Thank you. And aside
I'm sorry, really quickly. I think Steve had his hand up. Steve, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just very briefly. Thank you, Sherry. I just want to commend the Commissioner and all the work that's done. And I think we should add a point that there is a real vital role for higher ed to support the efforts in the Commission through pre-K through 12, because you know a lot of the creativity and innovation that you speak to, Miguel, can be you know on the campuses of our colleges and universities in Connecticut. When I was at UMass, I worked with the Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray at the time, who was leading a STEM initiative, and you know that was we were bringing hundreds of girls and minorities onto our campuses in the summer to do this kind of work, and it had a direct impact on creating, you know, addressing in one small way the need for closing the achievement gap as well. So I think that we need to, and I can, of course, we're working closely together. We need to do more of that. So we have informal learning settings as well as formal learning settings where our kids are being exposed to really critical areas, and it does have a direct impact, as has been shown as well in other states. So I want to real push to make sure there's accountability as well to our higher ed institutions.
Thank you, Dean Hagedis.
And Commissioner, I just really wanted to add for everyone here, I was on a call just recently with other states, and the fact that Connecticut was able to stand up the data collection system that we know about attendance and where our kids are on a monthly basis. And I don't know, Kari, we have these interactive maps, and I just want to make sure all our members here knows what's available to us. You can find out what a learning model is in each district. There's a map, and if you hover over a district, you can see what the learning model is. That's updated every week. And then we also now know about attendance and engagement in our districts, comparatively speaking, with our high needs students and where they are now versus where they were a year ago. And it's really allowing us to provide a lot of support and also to get community buy-in around the supports that's also necessary. So I just really wanted to place this here. That's really important for us to know.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And thank you, Dean Hagedis. You know, the interagency support, I think, could include higher education. We work with DCF closely, early childhood, higher education. I mean, that through line for the students that we serve has to be blurred. Thank you.
Happy to help.
Go ahead. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Cardona, for your leadership. I'm going to go to Cherie Phoenix, my esteemed General Counsel, who would like to jump in for a moment.
Yes, Lieutenant Governor is going to go over some next steps and our future meeting dates. We did try to plan out all of the ones for 2021, but I wanted to give you all in advance a heads up of what the subject matters are likely to be at those meetings, at least for the first two. So for the March meeting, one of the result statements and subjects that has come up both in our October meeting and this meeting is family engagement. We will do the family engagement section in our March meeting. There are a lot of agencies that we asked for commentary from on that one. It crosses over from OEC, DECD, DCF, of course, SDE. There are a few. So we'll talk a little bit about who's leading that discussion. But I just want to give everyone a heads up that we will talk about the family engagement section in the March meeting. We'll also in that meeting go over the housing results statement. And so thank you, Deputy Commissioner Hanks, because I know we talked about you leading that discussion. And we'll also do school climate and the achievement gap. So that's inside the Schoolhouse results statement. Those three, I think, will go very well together with some of the subjects that cross over and also be a good flow from our conversations thus far. For the meeting in June, we will go over both of the result statements under the inside higher education. So thank you, Steve. I'm glad you were able to join us today, Steve, and jump in with a lot of areas. I mentioned to you that you'll jump in on some other things, even not in that section. So thank you. But we will review both of your result statements in the June meeting. And we'll also, as a really good connection with that one, go over the principal and teacher hiring and retention, which is under the inside Schoolhouse. That'll be another one to mesh well with that. So just keep in mind that if you can think of someone, we had a really great presentation today from Lego, and it's really great to have that perspective in some of the things that we're talking about. If you can think of someone that you think makes sense with some of the other subjects, don't hesitate to reach out to us so that we can make time for them in the agenda also.
Excellent. Thank you, Cherie. So, and I want to thank everybody today for participating in our meeting and for your thoughtful comments in our discussion. And feel free to follow up if there's anything you think we should know about the topics covered today or some of the suggested topics for our future meeting. So we do have our quarterly meeting schedule for 2021. So I'm going to ask that you each mark your calendars for March 17th, June 23rd, September 22nd, and December 15th. And I would ask that you hold 1 to 3 for each of those quarterly meetings. As Cherie mentioned, we're planning on covering 3 or so topics in each of the meetings, and Cherie will be letting you know what those subjects are. And as she mentioned, if you do have suggestions about presenters or guest speakers that we should invite as we discuss those topics, please let us know, because we've had some really terrific presentations that have informed our discussion and will inform the report that we write. We are also working on a comprehensive spreadsheet that pulls information from all of your written and verbal responses addressing each policy recommendation. And we plan to include information from our discussions in the annual report to the legislature, which we will circulate shortly before our June meeting in a draft form so that you can take a look at it and review. Please be sure to let us know if you think that there's something else that you think is important to highlight for legislators in that report. So we will ask if there are any comments or questions before we adjourn. And as usual, we are on track here to adjourn on time. So do appreciate everyone's participation in this meeting today. Thank you so much for attending. And we will see you all again in March. Thank you so much for your great work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.